Well, for more on all this, let's welcome in Texas Congressman Pat Fallon. Congressman Fallon is also a member of the House Oversight and the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, welcome to the show. Good to see you this evening. All right, I want to talk to you about the debt ceiling in just a minute, but I want to talk to you about these classified document scandal first. You are on the House Oversight Committee. We just had the ranking member on, James Comer, talking about all the things that you guys are requesting and what you're asking for the White House. He said they really haven't been that compliant. But I want to ask you about this specific point because we had Speaker McCarthy, who has now said that the House will also look into both the Biden and the Trump classified document scandals, if I call those scandals. Are you planning on investigating both of these to the same level of intensity?
Well, Lindsay, thanks for having me on. Happy New Year. And Chairman Comer is very committed to transparency. And classified documents are classified documents, whether they're in the hands of Republicans or Democrats. And we want to ensure that they are properly kept and stored. With Joe Biden, we've seen now 3-4 different locations. And not all classified documents are created equal. I mean, you're talking about top secret, classified, still relevant documents that would be far more damaging than something that was, say, 10 or 12 years old. But nonetheless, you want to have them stored properly. The big difference is Joe Biden was not president until 2021. So when these documents that we're talking about that were discovered in his possession, he did not have the power and the authority to declassify them, whereas President Trump and other presidents do, unless they deal with a nuclear secret. So we should look at both, and we will go where the evidence leads us.
All right. I do want to switch now to the border. This is something that you all have talked about, was so important to you when you knew that you won the majority back right after the midterms and kind of campaigned on this. This was before we knew about the document scandal that was in place. But now that we have this, it seems like it's taken the forefront, this document scandal. So where does that put the border in terms of priority?
Well, I still think the border is number one. We can do, fortunately, we're taskmasters and we can do more things, more than one thing at the same time. But with the border, what we've seen is 250,000 illegal border crossings in December, Lindsay. That was the worst ever on record. In fact, we had never had a month where we had over 200,000 illegal border crossings in our history. Lindsay, the last 10 months in a row have been that bad. So clearly, it's a de facto open border at this point, and we must secure it because right now we are ceding control to the Mexican drug cartels.
Okay, so on that point, I actually want to play something that Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said earlier today about the number of encounters. Watch this.
Encounters from the targeted countries have dropped significantly. We're executing a comprehensive strategy to secure our borders and build a safe, orderly, and humane immigration system.
All right, you actually filed an article of impeachment against him. Do you agree? Are the numbers down?
I'm not buying what he's selling, Lindsay. I mean, this is ridiculous. The numbers and the data don't lie. They're generating them. Think about like in April of 2022, we had 234,000 illegal border crossing. To compare it to the last April President Trump was in office, it was 1,234% worse. May was 240,000 illegal border crossing, which was 930% worse than the last May President Trump was in office. And again, the worst month we ever had was December. So what Mayorkas is doing is tries to spin and obfuscate. The point is, what's shocking, this is a global problem now, a global catastrophe, because for the first time in our history as well, the number of folks crossing the border that were not from Mexico and Nicaragua, or Mexico and Honduras, those two countries they don't make the majority. It's everybody else. 160 different countries have people crossing the border illegally right now, and it has to be stopped.
So what do you make of this new program that Biden is rolling out where he is going to put a website online so people can kind of apply for a legal process to come into the country before they get there? They say this is really going to be able to help. This is really going to mitigate the number of people we see making the trek into the U.S.
Well, Lizzie, I'm going to share with you my crystal ball. I'm going to rub it. It's not going to work at all. It is a Band-Aid on an arterial wound. The way you want to stem migration, tell folks, because we know that 99.9% of these people are economic migrants. They're not political asylum seekers. You want to make an asylum claim, you will wait in Mexico while we adjudicate your claim, just like we did under President Trump. We will build barriers and we will build walls. We will deport criminals and we will have expedited removals and we'll punish people that overstay their visas. Those are the things that will put really meat in a border security policy. President Biden right now, all he's done is really open up the gates.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. And now they're saying the numbers are down there. You heard from Mayorkas. I do want to switch gears with you. As I brought up earlier, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen predicted that today would be the day that we hit the debt limit, and we have officially. Obviously, they are taking extraordinary measures at the Treasury Department and say that we have until June, maybe max July, before we default on our payments. This means Congress has a few months to figure some stuff out, but we also know there's a stalemate between Kevin McCarthy and President Biden. Biden says, I'm not negotiating at all. Kevin McCarthy says we have to start negotiating. But, Congressman, there's been a lot of concern about spending getting cut for our military. I mean, so much so that your own fellow Texas Congressman, Tony Gonzalez, didn't vote for the rules package last week over keeping spending to 2022 levels because he thought that would lead a path to not having enough money for our military. Are you confident that by cutting money out of the budget that you will still leave the appropriate money amount of funding for our military?
Yes, I am, and I respectfully saw things differently than my good friend Tony Gonzalez on that particular matter. But what we have seen is the Democrats are addicted to deficit spending. They just want to continue it along, and they say we are spending more than we take in. No kidding. That has to stop at someday, because there is going to be a day of reckoning. You saw it in Ireland and Spain and in Greece. There were austerity measures that had to take place. So it's either going to be now or it's going to be later, but it's going to happen at some point when we continue to spend like this. So we have to, say, you know what, Joe Biden, you got to stop ruling by decree. You don't control all levers of government anymore. It's time to come to the table. We need spending cuts, and we don't have to necessarily do that by cutting military spending. There's a lot more on the domestic front that is spent very unwisely and, quite frankly, waste taxpayer money.
Okay, I want to ask you about this as well before we go, because speaking of military spending, Ukrainian President Zelensky today asked Western allies, us being one of them, to partner to give them more weapons. We know that they're about to reach the 1-year mark next month of this insane war. But we have already spent a massive amount of money, billions of dollars in aid package to them. There's more on the table to go. Where are conservatives standing on that? Because this has been a point of contention, how much more money we would give them. How's the GOP going to kind of rationalize what they're cutting and what they're spending?
Well, Lindsay, that's a great question. I can just talk to you about what this conservative thinks. I think it's an extreme position to do nothing and to let Russia win. I also think it's an extreme position to give them a blank check. And it's Zelensky's job to ask for as much as he can get. That's his job. Our job is to determine what does he need to fight and stave off the Russian threat and eventually win. And there was $110 billion that has been given at Ukraine thus far. There have been 4 major budget packages, 4 major bills of support. I voted no on 3 and I voted yes on 1 because I do want the Ukrainians to have what they need to fight and win, but we can't give them that blank check as well because we have to put America first. And it is in our interest to help them, but we have to be measured in that assistance.
Yeah, it makes sense to have some checks and balances with where your money is going and knowing what it's being spent on. Congressman Pat Fallon, appreciate your time this evening. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Lindsay. God bless.